Welcome back to Ask the Educator, a podcast for all professionals involved in medical device processing and sponsored by Healthmark Industries. The education team here at Healthmark has 280 years of combined experience in areas ranging from sterile processing, endoscopy, OR, biomed, to hospital and industry leadership. Our goal is to leverage our collective experience to answer one of your questions each episode, giving you the practical tips you need to succeed in the evolving world of device processing. My name is Kevin Anderson, clinical educator here at Healthmark, and I will be your host. Let's get started. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Ask the Educator. This is Kevin Anderson, your host. As you know, or hopefully have been listening, we've finished up our 10 Factors of Cleaning series, but this is sort of the end cap, if you will. And Stephen Kovach, of course, is joining me for this one. So, Steve, what do you say? Shall we just get into it?
The whole purpose for this recap is I want people to understand where I came up with these 10 factors. And it first started back when I was a manager and I was having dirty instruments and tried to figure out why were they dirty. Well, back how I was trained, the book we used was Perkins. And I pulled out my Perkins book. And for those who don't know, Perkins' first printing was either, I think, 1956 or 53. And John J. Perkins worked for AMSCO, which was later bought by Steris. I got my book here. First printing was in 56. And this was required reading for anybody who was in management and central service, sterile processing. And basically around page 240, 243, that's called Factors Influence Removal of Soil from Instruments. And he goes, kind of soil, quality of water, type of detergent, concentration of detergent, types of instruments, time detergent solution is permitted to act, and efficiency of the washer. Sounds pretty familiar. But right. Now, almost, I think 3 or 4 years later, there was a scientist, a chemist, who worked for, I think, a detergent company, and they were selling detergent, basically not medical, but he came up what they call the Sinner cycle, which some people call TAC. So that's 1959, 1960. That's 4 years after Perkins, who was focusing on medical washers. And TAC is the little saying time, action, chemistry, temperature, and so on, mechanics. Everybody takes it a little different. And that's been adopted by a lot of the medical washing companies and detergent companies. So it doesn't take everything into account what Perkins said, but it's just looking at that, and people focus on the Sinner or the TAC cycle. So what I ended up doing almost 18 years ago when we started the College of Clean, I said, we're in a dynamic environment. And there's more to it than even what Perkins, and I'm not saying I'm smarter than John Perkins or Dr. Sinner, but we all know we're in a dynamic world. And when Perkins wrote his book, and it's still relevant today, and people need to read it, is our surgical instruments and procedures have changed. So what are we telling people? You need to know the IFU. You need to put in quality. And so if you have a dirty surgical instrument, you want to figure out what's going on, and TAC doesn't always answer that question. And so let's walk through these real quickly. Just see where I'm going? We're dynamic and things have to change. And I tried to build upon what other people have said to say, if you've got a dirty instrument, there are factors you need to understand, and let's talk about each one of those. And that's what you try to do. Right, Kevin? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And I think that we also, along the way during this series, we were also saying to the audience, think about other factors. If you have other ones to add to the mix that we're not talking to, let us know or share your reasons why you think there's another factor. I mean, we'd love to hear about it. Like you said, it's a dynamic environment. Things are constantly changing, and those are the things that we have to take into account.
Yeah, so I'm going to break down with just one instrument and go through the 10 factors real quick because we want these to be about 15 minutes. So you're on the assembly side and you've got just a regular retractor that's dirty. Why did it come through dirty? Meaning there's a spot or blood or whatever, and there shouldn't be anything. So what are you going to do? Just using tack doesn't really solve it. You're going to go back through and you're going to say, God, what's the IFU of this? Or let's make it an orthopedic item. It might say you should run this cycle at a certain time. Did you run it at that? So you look at the IFU. How was this instrument designed? Was it supposed to be taken apart? What was the soil that was on? Did I use the right detergent? Was the water quality? Was the temperature? Did you do good manual cleaning first? And then was your washer actually working correctly? And then even if that was all good, the human factor, was somebody trained properly? And what do the guidelines say if you have an old IFU that just says use a brush and put it in detergent? That doesn't do you any good. And then put it in a washer. And there are some of those out there. And then you put a quality process. So it tries to take everything, all those factors into account to solve why are my instruments dirty. That's what I try to give people of these factors. And if somebody goes back when I gave my first talk in Dallas, Texas, at Scottish Texas Rite Hospital with Ralph Basile in 2002, there was this gentleman who passed away, Wade Collins. He was past president of American Group. We did our first College of Clean, and my first College of Clean dealt with these factors. And if you look over the years, I had 6 factors, 7, 8, 9. Now I'm up to 10 because we learn and we have to keep building and understanding, why am I having problems? How do I solve it? What do I look at? So I wanted people to understand that this isn't just something I pulled out of the air. I've built on what other people have done, that I thought it would help them solve their issues of why I've got some problems with dirty surgical instruments, Kevin.
Well, and I think it's important too, because any of us that have worked in sterile processing for any length of time, we know that it's inevitable. You're going to run into a situation where either the OR is calling you because there's something, mysterious on the instruments, or you're going to find instruments that got through your washer and they're not, visibly clean. So it's just a fact of life that we're going to run into this problem. And sometimes our process to discover what went wrong is pretty simple, and we're quick to find out what went wrong, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes you find yourself spending a whole lot of time trying to investigate what went wrong, So I think having these 10 factors, sharing them like this in a simple way on a podcast where people can listen to and add to their knowledge really quick and over time is a really helpful tool. And I hope that that's how it's been received. And like you said, adding to it over time, inevitably that'll probably happen as time continues,
Yeah, because again, Kevin, I thank you for letting me help explain at the end, because, it's just not 3 or 4 factors. Inputs must consider many things when it comes to cleaning failures. And I know the TACT or the center cycle breaks it down very simply, and even Perkins, but you've got to look at everything. And we now know too, human factors is playing a big, tremendous part. And Amy's got committees on it. The World Federation does, ISO, all that comes into play, training and education. So I thank you for letting me take these few minutes to try to let people understand how I came about with these. And there could be more. And if you do, let's talk about them and see if maybe we get 11, 12, who knows, But
That's
thanks,
right,
Kevin. I really appreciate it for you letting me take a few minutes to talk about how I came about with these 10 factors.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you sharing it. And, obviously a lot of us, we hadn't been around when, everyone was
What
mandated.
are you saying? I'm old, Kevin? Wait a minute.
Oh, of course not. No. No,
Just
but
kidding.
that Perkins book is a really good resource, and that's something that I had never heard of before I worked with you. So, I mean, I think that's an awesome thing to share with people. It's a high quality book, one that was at one point you said, mandatory reading, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe it should still be. I don't know. I haven't dug into it yet, but from what you're telling me, I mean, it sounds like there might be stuff in there that isn't in our current materials, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So,
Kevin, when the Isham certification back in the 70s and 80s, you had to buy the Perkins book with their material.
yeah.
And anyways, I'll leave it at that. As always, I thank you for bringing me on, and look forward to the next time you and I are going to sit down and talk and discuss another topic for our brethren out there in the medical device reprocessing world. Okay?
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. All right, there's no need for a recap on this one because the entire episode served as a recap for the entire 10 Factors of Cleaning series. Remember, this series is intended to help you solve that mystery of dirty instruments. And again, if you think of any other factors that we didn't address, please let us know. You could submit any questions or comments that you have to our email address at asktheeducator@hmark.com. I want to thank you all for listening. If you missed any of this 10 Factors of Cleaning series, you can find them wherever you listen to podcasts. All opinions expressed on this show are those of the presenters. Before using any medical device, it is important to review the device manufacturer's instructions for use.